What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Samuel Richards. You know the drill by now. We're trying to enable you to have a smarter approach to the world of bodybuilding, documenting the real life of somebody as an amateur bodybuilder and tackling the big issues within the fitness industry. So today we've got a great topic that's going to be completely at my expense, talking about the sort of 2 years that I had at the start of my bodybuilding journey. Quite simply, I was overwhelmed by the wealth of information out there, and unfortunately, as I found out, about 80% of it was completely incorrect. There's loads of influencers, all with their own approach to health and fitness, who'll preach that their methods are gospel and that you should do all kinds of crazy stuff in order to enable gains. When the truth is, if you don't stick to the basics early on, you're going to hamper your results. I did, so I'm going to share that with you so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. So one of those major mistakes that I made early on was neglecting strength. And this really did affect me later on in my journey. I mean, you know, I have touched on this in other areas whereby my lifts aren't as impressive, my gains weren't as impressive early on. I didn't really make as much progress as I should have at that time, simply because I didn't prioritize strength. You know, lift big to get big is what every Mr. Olympia candidate will tell you. You don't see, you know, people who are on that stage shifting any less than, you know, a good 3-4 plate squat. And that's if they're going for a high rep working set. But I chose to neglect this, and a lot of people do, because the concept of just replacing strength with volume is so attractive. You know, it's safer for guys who don't have mates who can come and spot them in the gym. It's also, let's face it, a bit less strenuous. You know, I mean, lifting heavy is intensity from the start. Whereas people who lift light, you know, they're getting a good 10 reps there where they're basically doing nothing. And then, you know, realistically, the working set only kicks in about rep 10 to 12. But it's attractive. Lots of people online, you know, try and say that this is the way that, you know, bodybuilding is, and you're not trying to be a strength athlete. So why would you go out and squat heavy? And the simple reason is to keep shocking your body and keep fueling progressive overload. And because if you look at bodybuilders who lift heavy, they look aesthetically different. Science it up however you want, you know. Give me any explanation for why I'm wrong, but those facts are on stage. Look, the same goes for strength. You don't just manipulate one area of progressive overload. You use all the tools at your disposal. You provide a combination of these different approaches. If you went in and did 1 rep max for every exercise, you would be sacrificing a lot of growth. If you only go in and do high volume work, then you are also sacrificing a lot of growth. You've got to find the happy medium here. The second way that I was sacrificing gains early on is through my choice of a training split. So chances are you probably fall into 2 different camps: PPL, push-pull legs, or the bro split, or the pro split, as Fuad is trying to call it. So the bro split is basically 1 body part, 1 day. Cycle them all, take rest days sporadically wherever you deem fit, and that's basically the approach. PPL, or push-pull legs, is, as it says, push movements, pull movements, and leg movements, all split into different days. It does enable you to rotate more often, so you're able to train more frequently. However, it also does take away a level of body part specificity, and generally it can lead to very imbalanced physiques. So you have to tailor this to your own body. But the same goes with the bro split, right? Because that is a recipe for not hitting your body parts frequently enough, or getting enough training in there, or overexhausting on individual days and causing issues throughout other days. So for example, you do an intense shoulder workout, it affects your chest workout the next day. What you've got to do with both of these approaches is take a blended approach, find out what works best for you, manipulate both options. I personally pretty much lead a combination of the two. And this will enable you to find what works for you specifically. And this will change person to person, right? Look at all the greatest bodybuilders of all time. Whether you want to be a bodybuilder or not, these are the people who have manipulated their physique to the highest possible level. And most of the greatest of all time have their own very unique methodology. Arnold had a unique way of training. Jay Cutler had a unique way of training. Dorian had a unique way of training. And they all differed from each other, some of the times greatly. So these people found exactly what works perfectly for them. They ignored what other people were trying to tell them and formed their own methodology. And this is the best way to approach it. Now, first of all, I was pretty much doing the bro split, and I did do this, but it took me too long. I should have started trying to figure this out earlier within the first year. And I would suggest everyone to try and do this and just try and how to effectively train the best for yourself, because you can see the most results and therefore the most gains. The third way I well and truly messed things up was cutting when I should have been bulking. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't cut. Absolutely. That's the first thing I did. I was an ex-fatty, right? That was my priority. Try and get abs. But when you're smaller and you have lower muscle mass, the amount of body weight you have to cut off in order to reveal that muscle is usually quite a bit higher. And also the physique you're going to have underneath that is just going to be a normal person physique, right? Nothing special. Okay, so sometimes you've got to cut your losses. You get into a cut, you get down to the point where you sort of got abs, you're lean enough, but in order to actually take that next step, maybe you're still holding a decent bit of tummy fat, it will take so much off your physique that you're better off just going, right, this is fine, let me rebuild and try and control body fat as I rebuild. So cut down to something that is acceptable, that you think, okay, this is good, I'm relatively fit for a normal person, and then build your way up. Because it's going to be a lot easier to see that definition of muscle when you have more of it, and the process is just generally going to be better for you and you're not sacrificing gains really early into the process. Because if you're cutting, your chances of actually putting on a decent amount of mass are rock bottom. Point number 4 was trying to be clever. Curling in the squat rack, done it, mate. Superset, drop set, rest pause with a eccentric decline, all over it. Do a heavy set. I hadn't really done that. Look, I get why people get obsessed with these niche movements, right? We're all trying to get the step up on our competition. Some of the times we start lifting with mates, some of the times we're just trying to catch up. So we think, what can give me that extra 1%? And absolutely, these exercises, these different little niche approaches to things can absolutely help your physique later in the game. But if you're focusing on the 1% before the 99% is built and at a respectable level, then you don't really have solid foundations to build from. You're going to focus your time and energy on those niche things because they generally take more time and energy than just stepping under a barbell, doing some squats and building some sheer mass on your physique. Right, when you need to nitpick later along the lines, sure, absolutely do those movements. But in the meantime, focus on the basics and master them. There's a reason why, powerlifters have pretty fucking big physiques. That's because bodybuilding can be built absolutely on those core powerlifting movements with the accessories around them that you absolutely need to add in. But the opposite is not true. You cannot build a physique purely on these niche movements. It will just lead to you having one really well-developed body part and the rest of your physique neglected. And let's not forget, if you're talking bang for your buck from exercises, compound lifts will always provide the most, no matter what. I get it, right? I understand. When you and your mates pull out them windscreen wipers and you start kicking lights all over the place, you get a few looks. That's not the kind of looks you want, right? Check out the looks you get when you do a 3 or 4 plate squat. It's much better, and that's not even that impressive. If you must be an eccentric asshole, then just do a couple of drop sets every workout, right? You don't need to finish every exercise with some fancy exercise technique, especially not if you've got ample weight to grow with in terms of your lifts. For my last point, we've got a tale of 2 idiots. Idiot number 1 is the lean bulker. They decide that you must restrict calories to an extremely minimal surplus in order to not gain any body fat, thus restricting their amount of gains. Then we have idiot number 2. Idiot number 2 is a dirty bulker, a dreamer bulker, somebody who smashes back optimum nutrition, serious mass, and decides that chocolate milkshake from McDonald's is part of the core building blocks of their diet. This person sacrifices gains when they come to diet. Which one's right? Neither of them, obviously. In the middle, there's a sensible approach to diet. With regards to food, right, I'm sorry guys, you do need to eat a decent surplus for you to gain muscle mass. You do not need to eat a decent enough surplus that you get extremely fat. However, if competitive bodybuilding is your approach and you want to stay natural, that might just be the way forward, unfortunately. There are some great guys out there who talk about the struggles of bulking as a natural athlete. I won't touch on that. But it's not necessary for most people. And for most people approaching bodybuilding at that early stage, so maybe that first year or so, you have no business smashing back shakes. You don't need to bulk your diet out like that. And also your calories are more than attainable through an actual standard solid food diet. If you were to eat, chicken, rice, veg, beef with, whole grain bread, those kind of food sources, you would not struggle to get through that volume of food. it would be very difficult for you to. If you absolutely cannot get those calories in, then fine. You know, obviously, maybe try increasing your meal frequency first, but do not just go and buy an off-the-shelf supplement. You have no need. They are less complete forms of protein, and they are not going to be any better than a pure, proper meat source. Obviously, pretty much nothing trumps that. So ditch those supplements, right? Forget the idea that you're a hard gainer as well, because quite simply, you're just not eating enough. Forget the idea that you have to stay absolutely ripped or you have to get absolutely fucking massive, because it doesn't correlate to a healthy approach. Both are extremes. I believe that in the middle is something realistic and sustainable. For example, in my bulks, I eat about 80% clean food and 20% of it is not. It's not necessarily dirty, but you know, it might be stuff where the carb source isn't pure. So what? You know, every day I might have one of those meals or a few times a week. When I'm on a cut, you know, I absolutely restrict my macros. You know, I work by that approach. I work to a rough meal plan as well. But one of those meals, maybe every other day, I'll swap out. Maybe I don't fancy rice and I want bread, and that's absolutely fine as long as it fits within those parameters and you're not too close to a competition. But for all you normal people out there, these things don't really matter. You know, you can pretty much do what you want. Have a cheat meal every day in the off season. In your cut, you can eat bread every single day. You know, I'm still eating bread now every single day for breakfast. It is that artisanal sourdough shit though, so maybe I get a pass. So they're just a brief recap of the mistakes that I made early on. Look, we all made them. We're all guilty, so don't go sitting there going, "You attack me." We've all done it. These are things that I've done particularly. And these are reasons why also, you know, I had a much tougher time in the sort of middle ground of my progression. I really stopped making progress. I was resting on those approaches that I gained in the first year, which were, as I've already explained, detrimental to my growth. So I was basing my training on an outdated and ineffective method. Nowadays, I push strength. You know, I have a much smarter approach to food. I really focus on those compound lifts. Things just generally are smarter, better balanced, and I've seen incredible results. Yes, of course, a lot has changed over the last year, but this spans way back before that time. And even when I was natural and I started making these changes, I saw exponential growth. Hope this helps. Look, the next episode of Stage Ready is just slightly delayed. That's because we're going to be covering stuff such as my cycle, the anabolics approach, a bit of a day in the life, and obviously we've got to obviously arrange filming that and have the free time. So that might not be until next week. So in the meantime, I'm going to drop this video. Thanks very much for joining me. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.